Hello, and now we come to planning a lesson. When you were at school, you probably did not realize that each lesson was carefully prepared. Well, it should have been. Good teachers make the whole process of teaching and learning look effortless and work hard at making it meaningful and worthwhile. Essentially, lessons have several components, and each one serves a very particular purpose. Let's go through them carefully so that you can work towards becoming an expert teacher, and so that you can plan meaningful learning engagements for your learners in the teaching practice session that is approaching. First, we deal with the introduction. I like to think of this part of the lesson as an invitation. You are inviting your learners to voluntarily come on this learning journey with you. An invitation is a lovely thing to receive. It means that you are included. It means that the person who invited you would really like you to be present. And of course, it's your choice as to whether you accept or not. What kinds of words can you think of that would capture a good invitation? I can contribute exciting, intriguing, enticing. How can we do that in an introduction for a lesson? We grip the imagination of the children. We ask them questions that make them think about things that are new to do. But we ask those questions in such a way that they are possible to answer and fun to think about. The point of these questions is to encourage the learners to think and to participate willingly in the lesson. An example that I can give you and that I've used before is this one. Why do you think that horses have manes and cows do not? The important thing about this question is that there is no right answer, so whatever the children say is acceptable. Come on, have fun trying to think of some questions for your own subject that could have the same result. Your questions could be supported by something that you show the children. This could be an object, a picture, a video, depending on your context. Can you see how your choices are being influenced by your context? What you actually use in your lesson is known as your resources. These could be very simple or could become quite complex, depending on the choices that you make. On the whole, your introduction should be short, fun, and should not contain any new information. This is not where you start the teaching and learning process. This is where you invite your learners, where you intrigue them, where you show them that it's their choice to want to know more. Once you have them captivated, then you move on to the learning engagement, which is called the body of your lesson. Before we go any further, would you please stop this video and go and fetch a piece of paper and a writing implement? This is very important. Are you back? Good. Now, please stop the video again and write these words on that piece of paper. I will never teach like I was taught at school. It is no longer appropriate for 20th century learners. Oh, I'm sorry. I said that too quickly. I'm going to say it slowly so you can write it down word for word. I will never teach like I was taught at school. It is no longer appropriate for 21st century learners. Have you got it down now? Good. Now, look at the words that you have written. Understand them in your heart. Understand them in your head. Commit yourself to them. The learning engagement is about turning your learners into active participants in the classroom. Active participants. Your role is not to stand and deliver content. Your role is to facilitate learning. This is a huge challenge to teachers who like to follow the traditional model of the sage on the stage approach. It's much easier to teach like that. When we strive to make our learners active participants, our planning changes radically. We have to consider the following. What are my learning objectives for this lesson? How can I encourage my learners to achieve these by being active? You could consider some of the following. Bring a sense of playfulness into the process. Give them problems to solve that will require them to seek answers in their own ways. If your context allows it, let them work in groups to explore and teach each other. Make sure that any questions that you ask them are challenging and open-ended. If a question can be answered with yes or no, don't ask it. Accept that mobile phones are a part of the existence of most learners. Don't ban them in your class. Use them for learning. Give the learners all the answers to a test and let them find the questions. Give the learners small sections of work that they can prepare to teach the whole class. Let the learners make simple posters to explain the process. Let them use the peer explanation process, where they explain to a peer what they need to learn. Let them create mind maps, spider diagrams, illustrations, apparatus, or equipment. The importance here lies in the first 3 words of that sentence. Let them create. If I was to tell you exactly what you should do during this part of the lesson, I would be teaching you like my teachers taught me, and that is almost 100 years ago. So I'm inviting you to think critically yourselves, to read around this, to talk with your own peers, your colleagues, your friends, your families. I could deliver an entire thesis to you on how to ride a bicycle. I could name every part of the bicycle and explain its function, but none of that will actually help you to ride the bicycle. For that, you need to sit on the pedal and you sit on the saddle and push the pedals yourself. You may wobble a little, you may feel very unsure, but the more you do it, the better you'll become. And soon you'll be flying down hills with the wind in your hair. I'm inviting you to get on that bicycle. Good teaching, effective, meaningful, life-changing teaching is a skill. I can give you lists and lists of do's and don'ts, but for you to really learn that skill, you need to practice it, understand your own identity in the process, and slowly become an expert. The conclusion of a lesson is that part where we make the learning whole. We bring it all together and close it with a sigh of satisfaction. Once again, there is no way that is right to conclude a lesson, but it should be done as meaningfully as possible. Options could include giving the children opportunities to apply what they have learnt in a new and meaningful way. You could include an assessment activity, but only if this is for learning. You could have a quiz, a playful activity that makes the learning real, a way of applying the learning in an entirely new context. From the history curriculum, learners are expected to understand deep gold mining and conditions underground. What could you let them do to apply this knowledge? From the geography curriculum, learners are asked to understand urbanization. How could they show this? Think beyond what the curriculum says. Consider your context and make it meaningful for your learners. Just a word on textbooks. I've co-authored more than 45, so I bring you information that is accurate. In order for a textbook to be produced, it has to be passed by the National Department of Education. It has to be applicable to all South African schools and must therefore be as generic as possible. Textbooks do not take context into account. Obviously, they can't. So while the information in textbooks may be correct, the activities that are suggested may not be entirely suitable for your particular learners in their particular contexts. It's up to you to make choices that will make the learning meaningful for your learners. It's up to you to make them want to learn and want to participate in your lessons. It's up to you to turn away from the old-fashioned way that you were taught and to bring your learners into the very center of the learning experience so that they become the active participants and co-creators of their own knowledge growth. The challenge, of course, is for you to become the most critical of critical thinkers. Stretch yourself beyond the ordinary. Reach out and bring wonderfulness into your teaching. It is entirely possible. It's a choice that you make, and it will transform every learner in your class. I wish you great joy.